on face, it does look like one of those rules where it's like, oh, suddenly I can raise money from non-accredited investors a lot more easily. It's not really worth it, mostly because you have to go through a state-by-state process, and it's very difficult a lot of times to make sure that you're still in compliance with the exemption, because a lot of times, a lot of times people raise under certain rules, like the 506 rules that I just talked about, because you can literally raise from all 50 states and not worry, right? 504 is not that way. And so it tends to be a lot less popular. Very seldom do I see people raising money under it. Same thing as there are state exemptions, right? So everything I've talked about so far, these are all federal exemptions. Which means, all these, they operate under a federal preemption. So that means federal law takes precedent over state law. So it doesn't matter what the state says, except for the fact that at the very end, you have to pay them this, blue sky filing fee. But, basically, if you use the 506 exemptions, you're good in all 50 states. If you use a state exemption, you are basically limited to not only the rules of that exemption, but you can only take investors from that particular state, right? And so also very seldom do we ever see people use state exemptions. The only exception I would say is if the investor, if the syndicator and their entire network of investors all tend to come from one state, right? So, and it tends to be states where there tends to be a lot more capital. And really, across the US, there's only a couple of states where there's a lot of capital. California, Texas, New York, Illinois, Florida are some examples, right? Wyoming to a certain extent. After that, if you are in a state where there's not a lot of rich people, you're probably definitely going to be using one of the federal exemptions. And yeah, sorry.
So what's the positive thing of doing a 504? Why, if you were just one state specific, then you would pursue that. But why would I do a 504?
Sure. A 504 is just one of those things where it's kind of like a case by case basis. It might be good on this deal, but it might not be. I would tend to say sometimes it may be good for folks who don't have a huge network of accredited investors. But even then, even when those folks come to me, I usually tell them, look, it doesn't matter. Just go and do a Rule 506B, because at the end of the day, that one allows you to take money from non-accredited investors, but you're still working to build up your list of accredited investors. And, I know it seems really difficult in the beginning, but the truth is that real estate is a long game. You're never just going to do one offering, right? And so you always have to be looking for the future. So if you go out today and try and build up your network of accredited investors, it might not work for your first deal, but for your second deal, your third, your fourth, at least you have that base to begin with. Versus, I feel like when you're using some of these exemptions where it doesn't force you to go out and build up your network of accredited investors, it's kind of like it's a temporary fix, but it's not good for you long term.